What's up, everybody? Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish, and boy, do we have a fun one today. The rivers are back open, which is fantastic, but the water is low, which makes fishing difficult, and we have the solution for you. So grab your tools, grab your vise, and let's solve this problem. Alright, so in the vise today, we have an Ahrex FW561, and this is the size 10. So of course that 561 indicates that this is the barbless version. But for the bead, we've got the new to Spawn anyway, Dazzle brass bead. This is a 1/8 size in the color fluorescent orange. And you might think, well, if you're trying to sink a tiny streamer, why not use a bigger bead? Well, because like I said in the intro, the water is low right now. So you still want to toss a streamer, especially to these anadromous species. And this is a fun way to still fish a small streamer and trigger those fish to attack, but it's not going to sink so quickly as to be ineffective. So let's get started with some non-leaded weighted wire. And this is size 0.015. And I'm looking for about 10 wraps here, like so. Come in with my dedicated wire scissor, cut that front piece, turn it, and I will round that cut edge over. And I'll do the same on the back. Another fun feature when you're fishing shallow streamers like this is you get to watch it the whole time it's in the water. So if you're not accustomed to being able to see your fly underneath the surface, this might be a good way for you to get some practice. Tie some lighter style streamers and then control the depth so that you, of course with your polarized sunglasses, can see what the fly is doing. Alright, so for the thread today I've got some Veevus 50D, and this is the color black. I'm just going to cover up those wire wraps a little bit, and nothing's going to move on us there. Alright, so let's come on back down to the last flat section, if you will, on that shank like so, and maybe come up a wrap. Alright, so first thing I want to do is tie in a little bit of a tail. So I've got some Schlappen here, and this is from Hareline, and this is the Spawn Southern Fluorescent Peach color. As you can see, I've gotten the tip prepared and gave myself a little tie-in space right there. And again, let's go use that thread mark that we made for where we want this to lay. And typically, you can trim this little bit of feather off, but it's actually going to help us balance out that underbody a little bit. Alright, so now here's our feather. So those first few fibers are the key. Get those facing the rear or back over the hook bend like this, and then we can start wrapping. Now, if you're fishing for rainbows or brown trout, something like that, in the spring, summertime, if they're still short hitting and they're striking at just the tail of the fly, by all means, keep that in mind and go shorter and more sparse on that tail. But we're fishing for sea run cutthroat, and they're not shy, and they don't typically nip at things. They just go ahead and eat. So that's going to be plenty of tail. So let's go ahead and tie that off. Right. Bring as many of these fibers up right there as you can. Get a clean tie-off spot, and one little stubborn fiber there. But we'll go ahead and tie him in. No one will ever know. Do your flies have to be perfect? Not even close. Alright, let's get this thing tied in. Couple of little wraps there to catch that quill. 4, and then 1 in front. And I'll just trim this out like so. Clean up any loose fibers that might have gotten moved around, whatever it might be. And solidify that tie down. Alright, now let's come up toward the front, and you've seen me do this move more than once, but it's a good one, it's very effective, so we're going to do it again. Alright, so I'm going to use a rib in this fly, and this happens to be some ultra wire size Brassie color black. you could probably do without the rib, but I like that it gives a segmented look or a barred look to the body, and of course it does add some strength. Alright, so for the next piece, this will be the body itself. Got some Saltwater Flashabou and Holographic Silver. I love this stuff. It is fishy, fishy. Alright. See if I bump the device there. I'll try not to move that too much on you guys. Alright, so my tinsel's now tied in, or my flash. So what I'm going to do to really make this body as strong as possible is come in with just a touch of gel, super glue gel, and get that on there. That's it. Now I'm going to wrap all the way back, slightly overlapping to a touching wrap kind of feel there, and make sure you're covering up with your thread wraps. Cover the tail and then start working your way back up. On the way back up, make sure you definitely use some overlapping wraps. And what happens is that super glue gel, of course, squeezes out a little bit as you wrap down, and so when you wrap back up, it's still going to contact that glue, and this body's going nowhere. So a couple wraps, bring that flash back, a couple wraps on top, and now we can cut that out. Boom. Nothing to it. Alright, let's strengthen this whole thing, give it those little par mark look, like so, and tie that off right behind the bead. Couple wraps to secure, and then we're going to pull that back, get a couple wraps on top, and we can trim out that wire. And if you wanted to fish this jig style, you surely could. But again, we're trying to fish a shallow streamer here, so we don't really need that jig style hook to keep us out of trouble, because in theory, we're going to try to stay out of trouble. Alright, so next we're going to go in for a little topper here, or wing if you will, but it's a bait fish, so this is just the top. And this is some Marabou, and this is again from Hareline in the color Spawn's Southern Fluorescent Peach. I don't want very much. I'll show you how much of this Marabou I've got, and as you can see, it's not a ton. We're not going for a bulky fly. This is pretty slim. We just want a little movement on top of this tiny body. So as far as the length on this top here, I'm just going to go ahead and match it right up to the end of that tail and then tie it on the very top of this fly. I don't want it creeping down the sides or anything crazy like that. So about 5 wraps back. So as you can see, I'm not eating up a lot of space there. I'm just getting the job done, keeping it on top, making sure everything's secure. Once that's done, go ahead and get my thread in front for a wrap, and then I can cut out all these tag pieces of Marabou, making sure I don't get the good ones, like so. And this little bit of fluff there in the front will get tied down as we finish this fly. Alright, just a couple more elements to go here. I'm going to start with our flashy topper that's really going to add a dorsal effect, which is some Peacock sword from Hareline. And as far as how many fibers, I'm generally using about 5 on something this size. Again, not a ton of color, but a little bit, and especially when it's on a peacock, goes a long way. Alright, so as you see, my fibers don't all line up on that curve, that natural kerf, if you will, from those peacock sword. And while it bugs me a little bit as a fly tire, I've seen this fly in the water and does not bug me one bit as a fly fisher. So get that tied, and I will show you. You want to sit directly on top of that Marabou, and you can see the dorsal effect that's going to have in the water, and it has some movement, so it's a win-win, except if you're a fish. Alright, trim those butts out, tie them back down, We got one element to go, and we're switching from Peacock Sword right on into Peacock Eyed Stick. I'm not going to play it in the eye itself because those are a little bit thin for what I'm trying to accomplish, but I'm going to come down just slightly into the area underneath the eye. And I'm going to look for 2, maybe even 3 nice Herls that are full of fibers and got that iridescence that we're really looking for. Alright, so I'm just going to come in here about 2 inches down from the very tips. That's going to be my tie-in point. Don't need a ton of space because we only need a few wraps. Just covering up that thread neck area, and this is really gonna give a nice finished look to this fly. Alright, trim those butts out and get that thread just right up against the bead. At this point, I'm just going to gently start spinning these Herls together to form a peacock herl rope, and at that point I'll simply fill in that thorax. There we go. That's it. 2.5 wraps if you're counting. And tie that down, pull back, a couple thread wraps in front of it, and now I can safely trim that peacock out of there. Alright. I hope you guys are doing okay with this fly so far. Nothing crazy. Like I said, pretty simple, but boy does it work. Alright, so here we go. Whip finish time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bring it up, snug, pull, bingo. Let's do it one more time, just in case. Oh, I want to get in front of those fibers. There we go. And voila. So now, let's throw in just a touch of head cement. Call this fly good. So you try to keep that head cement out of those peacock fibers if you can. You'll catch a few of them, but it's okay. Unless you're going to a fashion show for flies. These things are built for fish, and that's what we like to do with them, is offer them to the fish. And there you have it. Head cement, a little tiny sea run cutthroat dancer here. A little flash on the underbody, which gives you dorsal of the peacock sword on top, and that is nothing but net. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. Leave any comments below and we will address them. And as always, we look forward to seeing you guys on the water.